What's going on? Joel Gordine here from WCG Ultimate Gamer. Today's webisode is all about NBA Live 09. It is, of course, our sports game that we're featuring in Samsung Stadium, and this makes it a pretty tough week for a lot of the gamers because a lot of people that play sports games like NBA Live 09, they kind of tend to only play games like NBA Live 09, and a lot of our gamers who branch out to other games tend not to play games like NBA Live 09. What does this mean? It means that a lot of gamers aren't particularly skilled at sports games. Fortunately for Mark, he is. Unfortunately for others, they weren't. So NBA Live 09 was a real stumbling stone for a lot of our gamers. Let's take a look at some of the gaming that went on in today's episode for those of you who are curious, and we'll talk a little bit about the ISO challenge and the actual elimination challenge. What was surprising about a lot of the isolation play was how few players actually were thinking about this game as a real basketball game. Now, NBA Live 09, it features like 365-day support from EA and ESPN, so it is rather accurate in terms of the actual stats for each player and how each player plays, or at least they try and make it as accurate as possible. Now, because of this, Kobe Bryant is very powerful. If people didn't know basketball well or weren't practicing, you might actually be trying to run all over the paint with Fisher. It's kind of unusual, but that is what we saw a lot in the ISO chamber. A lot of people came into the ISO chamber without a distinct game plan and started trying to do a lot of inside shooting and rebounding with Derek Fisher. The computer is playing defense against me right now, and you can see that they'll do a pretty admirable job. I mean, Kobe is stacked to the gills with statistics. See, you can see how they're double teaming him. There's a lot of good D. Now, I'm not going to try and shoot, I just want to show the D. Just running into the paint is going to keep your score rather low, especially if you're playing against any semi-decent team. You really have to kind of branch out your play. More players need to actually consciously think of a strategy. When we had the actual elimination round, the players got a choice of teams. The reason why they were given these 4 teams is they actually are rated the same. I believe those 4 teams are rated at an 82. They're all rated fairly evenly. In terms of NBA Live, an 82 is quite good. We gave them teams that really play very well and fluidly, but are all equal. Let's talk about what CG did. All CG did was rush forward. She went for quick breaks. I'm not saying it was a bad idea, but Mark is an experienced player. Mark utilizes double teams. He uses his hands-up maneuvers. He presses in using the left stick, using his body for defense. All these things brought Mark to a victory because he was winning defensive battles, whereas CG was pretty much stepping back, allowing the computer to do its thing. But here's the biggest mistake CG made. CG, being a gamer, would take one of the defenders out of position and pressure Mark. Mark would be ready for this, and then, when it came time for him to make his move, there would be one player out of position. So Mark had more openings than he might have had if CG had just truly let the computer do its thing. Honestly, if CG had controlled the defender and merely pressed in using the body checking moves, given enough defensive pressure, Mark might have had to back down. But because of this, because CG really stepped off defense, went right for a steal, often failed, and then had a man out of position, Mark could make more points than he might have if she had actually just played a fairly safe defense. I hope you could, I hope that kind of gave you perspective on being Live 09, and I have to say, it is an extremely impressive basketball game, and it's a whole lot of fun to play, and so I think I'll just do some moves and then do some ridiculous dunk with Kobe. Why not? He can.